forest. Seo noted the rustle of leaves and the way sunlight filtered through the canopy. Every sound, every flicker of movement in the greenery was etched into his memory as part of his growing awareness of the world around him. Seo walked steadily through the forest, his breaths deep and measured, sword in hand. It had been 5 years since he began the relentless practice of maintaining both his sword chi and his spatial awareness. 5 years of unbroken discipline and focus. Seo swayed slightly, a wave of dizziness washing over him. Perceiving every fragment of spatial information that entered his field of vision was exhausting, far from an ordinary task, and certainly not an easy one. It demanded constant focus, pushing his mind to its limits. Seo realized his perception had grown sharper than ever before. It was no longer limited to visual information. Now, even the faintest sounds reached him with clarity. The rustling of leaves, the distant chirping of insects, the subtle crunch of footsteps, all of it became part of the world he was learning to perceive. A shadow of doubt crossed Seo's mind. Will I even be able to perform martial arts properly in this condition? He wondered. Yet, he reminded himself that there were no more sects left to confront, at least for now. For nearly 3 decades, Seo journeyed across the entire Yan Kingdom, challenging minor sects in sparring matches, and, on occasion, testing his skills against the major ones. By now, there was hardly a sect in the kingdom that he hadn't visited, and now, Seo made his living by collecting bounties. His skills had brought him to the point where he was not only confronting outlaws, but also capturing dangerous bandits with ease. In his dizzy state, he found himself forced to battle enemies who attacked without restraint, using any means or methods to kill. The thought gnawed at him. Could he truly survive under such relentless conditions? One of the bandits spotted him and shouted, "Brother, it's him!" Another roared, "Found you, you bastard!" But Seo remained calm, gripping his sword tightly. Either way, he thought, this is the path I've chosen. The towering bandit leader stepped forward, his broad frame draped in a leopard-patterned robe, eyes locked on Seo with murderous intent. Resting a massive blade on his shoulder, he sneered and pointed his second sword toward his target. "You're dead now!" he roared, his voice rumbling through the forest as the other bandits closed in behind him. Seo steadied his breathing, sword chi swirling around him despite the pounding in his head. Even if I die, he thought, this is the path I've chosen. Facing the armed men before him, his grip tightened. Isn't this the path I must walk? Blood sprayed through the air as screams of agony pierced the forest. The clash had begun, and the carnage was instant. 15 years had passed. Seo, now aged and bearing a weathered face marked by deep lines, gazed forward with a solemn expression. His gruff voice carried the weight of years as he quietly asked, "Did you survive, Director Kim?" His long hair tied neatly back and a deep scar etched across his face met Seo's gaze with a warm smile. In a confident yet light-hearted tone, he replied, "This time too." It had been 45 years since Seo had returned to this life. As he calmly poured tea, his thoughts reflected on the changes within him. By now, his vision and hearing were sharper than ever, leaving no room for doubt. Even his sense of touch, taste, and smell had reached a state of refined perception, honed to near perfection over the decades. Seo's gaze fell upon the steaming cup of tea before him. Despite all the refinements his senses had achieved over the decades, he knew in his heart. Seo's expression grew heavy, his eyes shadowed with the weight of regret. Even after all these years, he thought to himself, I still haven't become a master at the peak. Seo's eyes burned with fierce frustration, the weight of decades pressing down on him. The thought echoed relentlessly in his mind, rising into a silent roar. I still haven't. Director Kim sat across from Seo, a faint smirk playing on his lips as he sipped his drink. He explained that it seemed he had become wanted. Perhaps he had gotten a bit too famous among the cultivators. 2 of them, he continued, had even gone so far as to set a trap and lie in wait for him. Seo recounted his experience with a measured tone. He explained that he had barely managed to escape the ambush, though he did succeed in leaving a small cut on one of his attacker's cheeks. Looking toward Director Kim, he remarked that surely Kim must have gained valuable insight from this encounter as well. Director Kim scoffed at the idea of insight, dismissing it as nonsense. Placing his hand on the cup, he admitted that, even now, he still couldn't defeat a judgment stage Taoist. If he failed to escape in such a fight, he knew the outcome. He would end up as nothing more than a corpse lying on the ground. Director Kim tilted his head back slightly, his expression thoughtful as he confessed what had been weighing on his mind lately. He admitted that the extreme state of the 5-path core he had reached might, in fact, be the very end of the martial path itself. Director Kim reflected aloud, wondering if even the martial arts record Seo had first given him one that claimed martial arts could surpass cultivation, was perhaps flawed. He questioned if SEO had ever shared his thoughts, that no matter how strong or skilled one became, martial arts alone could never truly defeat cultivators. For some reason, SEO found himself seeing a reflection of his own past and struggles in Kim Young-hoon. SEO observed that Kim Young-hoon clearly possessed a talent blessed by the heavens. In contrast, he reflected bitterly, he himself had been born with a talent abandoned by the heavens. SEO reflected that he and Kim Young-hoon possessed talents that were complete opposites, one blessed by the heavens, the other abandoned by them. Yet, despite this stark contrast, he couldn't help but wonder, why does he look so much like me? SEO admitted his frustration at not knowing why he couldn't reach the peak realm. Director Kim considered this, and noted that even after mimicking sword chi and adopting the perspective of the peak realm, SEO still couldn't attain it, and he still had no idea why. Under the quiet night sky, Director Kim suggested having a sparring match for old time's sake. SEO responded with a faint smile, saying it was the best thing he had heard in a long while. The moon hung high in the night sky, casting a gentle silver glow over the quiet forest below, as if silently bearing witness to the coming clash. The stillness of the night was shattered by a deafening clash, the air erupting with explosive force as their battle began, sending shockwaves rippling through the trees under the moonlit sky. SEO staggered back, clutching his side as pain surged through him. Gritting his teeth, he shouted in frustration, "What the hell do you think the problem is?" Director Kim, standing with his sword in hand, admitted honestly that he didn't know the reason. By all rights, SEO should have become a peak master long ago. Blood dripped from SEO's mouth as he staggered, his voice sharp with confusion and urgency. "What do you mean? How strange. How bizarre. Why is this happening?" Director Kim wondered himself, struggling to comprehend. He said that even if SEO truly had no talent at all, this outcome still didn't make sense to him. Hearing that SEO's eyes widened in shock and confusion, Director Kim placed a thoughtful hand on his chin, his gaze steady. "Perhaps, what you're missing," he suggested, "is the right trigger." SEO repeated the word softly. "Trigger," Director Kim explained. "Something like desperation, or a driving force. Something that could push you past the limits of your talent by drawing out extreme focus." SEO's rage exploded as he shouted, his voice echoing with decades of frustration. "What kind of damn trigger are you even talking about? I've wielded a sword for over 50 years, my whole life." SEO's eyes burned with fury and desperation as he roared, "And now you're telling me, what kind of trigger do I still need to yearn for, and how much more desperately?" His voice trembled with raw emotion. "I've risked my life and struggled all my life just to escape mediocrity." SEO roared with fervent intensity, raising his sword high. "I've activated every meridian in my entire body. Now, even when I sleep, I hold my sword and release sword energy. Even in my dreams, I've reached the point where I process every bit of scenery and information I see." SEO collapsed to his knees, his voice breaking with anguish. "Then why? Why? Just why the hell? You're telling me the next realm won't reveal itself to me? Why? Why the hell not?" SEO lay sprawled on the ground, his sword cast aside, his breath ragged. Even he knew how pitiful it is for an old man, nearly 70, to resent the heavens. His voice cracked with anguish. Just why? Even after a lifetime of chasing the sword, yearning for that elusive next realm, SEO's grasp remained empty. His fingers clawed into the dirt as he growled through clenched teeth. No matter how desperately he pursued it, he couldn't even begin to comprehend what that next realm truly was. Director Kim stood silently, sword in hand, gazing at SEO, who lay collapsed on the ground. His expression betrayed no words, only quiet contemplation, as the weight of SEO's struggle hung heavy in the night air. Director Kim turned away, his long hair swaying with the motion. With a swift, precise movement, his sword sliced through the air, sending sharp bursts of force into the trees ahead. The trunks split under the sheer power of his strikes, embers scattering in the night as the sound of tearing wood echoed through the forest. While sparring with him, Director Kim had devised a martial technique tailored to compensate for the SEO weaknesses. The markings of this new technique burned into the tree's surface, glowing faintly with heat and energy. "It may not be much comfort," Director Kim said calmly, "but I hope that learning this will bring you some peace of mind." SEO's eyes widened slightly as he read the glowing characters carved into the tree. Mountain King's martial art, and moon crossing step, recognition dawning in his voice. His grip tightened on his sword, a mixture of awe and reluctance filling his gaze. He looked toward the place where Director Kim had been standing moments ago, and sighed bitterly. "You'll disappear again, just like that." 5 years later, The serene courtyard basked in the gentle warmth of autumn. The once vivid greens of the surrounding forest, now transformed into a tapestry of gold, crimson, and amber. SEO tightened his grip on his sword, his weathered eyes filled with the weight of countless years. It had been 50 years since he had returned to this life, and now he could feel the end drawing near. He knew there was not much time left before death would finally claim him. SEO stood in the open courtyard, gazing upward as if speaking to someone beyond the mortal realm. Brother Young Hoon, you died, his voice heavy with sorrow. A deep sigh escaped him. So this is the fate the heavens have chosen for both you and me. SEO's gaze softened as he reflected on the harsh truth of his journey. With my talent, he thought, no matter how hard I struggled, this was as far as I could go. His expression grew somber as he considered his fallen comrade. And your talent too. Perhaps that was its limit. Walking away with a sword in hand, SEO spoke with a voice heavy with resignation. No matter how much ordinary men like us struggle, we can't escape the fate the heavens have set for us. From behind, a voice cut through the air in sharp defiance. What kind of nonsense are you spouting? Seo Yun-hyun. It was Director Kim. Blood streamed down Director Kim's face as he staggered forward, desperation blazing in his eyes. Wait! He cried out, his voice hoarse and trembling. A violent cough shook his body, forcing blood from his lips. SEO's eyes widened in alarm as he caught sight of Director Kim's grave injuries. Your condition is serious, he exclaimed urgently. Without hesitation, he added, I need to get my medical tools from home. But suddenly something grabbed SEO from behind. His expression tightened in alarm. His eyes widened, sensing something unexpected. In an instant, SEO was hurled into the air by Director Kim, and just as they fly into the sky, the ground erupted in a violent explosion of dirt and debris, the shockwave echoing across the courtyard. As they were hurled through the air, SEO's eyes widened in shock. What? He thought in disbelief. His gaze locked on Director Kim, and a chilling realization struck him. Weren't both of his arms cut off? Director Kim shouted over the rushing wind, his voice filled with urgency. Look, Yoon-hyun, that crazy cultivator bastard is chasing after us. A bitter laugh escaped him despite the danger. This is the price I paid for blasting off one of the Judgment Stage cultivator's arms. Blood streamed down Director Kim's face as he let out a wild, almost manic laugh. He roared. His eyes burned with a fierce sense of accomplishment. I dealt meaningful damage to a Judgment Stage cultivator. Director Kim's bloodshot eyes burned with a wild, unrestrained fervor. I saw with my own eyes the realm beyond the 5-path core, he declared, his voice trembling with exhilaration. The one no martial artist can reach. His expression twisted into manic laughter. I saw it with my own eyes. SEO's eyes widened in shock, his face frozen in disbelief as he looked on, utterly stunned by what he had just heard. Director Kim, his face bloodied and his robes torn, shouted for attention with a mix of triumph and desperation. Above him, a brilliant blue sphere crackled with immense energy, radiating an overwhelming power. With a wild, almost manic expression, he declared that he had risked his life and burned away his very life force to reach this moment. Seo's eyes widened in shock, his face etched with disbelief and awe. Staring intently at the sight before him, he muttered in a breathless tone that it was enhanced chi. Director Kim declared with pride that he had once used this very power to shatter the arm of a core formation cultivator. Below them, the brilliant blue sphere surged with energy, radiating an overwhelming force as it hovered in the air. The attack crashed down with devastating force, obliterating the buildings in its path. Wood splintered, debris flew in all directions, and the structures crumbled into rubble under the sheer impact. The air was filled with the sound of destruction as chaos engulfed the area. Director Kim turned to Yoon-hyun, urging him to watch closely. As smoke and debris billowed in the distance, he declared with pride that what they had just witnessed was the culmination of his life's work, devoting himself entirely to the training of martial arts. Seo's expression softened with shock and sorrow as he gazed into the distance. His voice trembled, barely above a whisper, as he uttered in disbelief and grief that his house was gone. Seo looked upon the smoldering ruins, his heart heavy with loss. He reflected that he had invested every bit of money he had gathered over 50 years into this home, pouring his boundless fighting spirit into its creation. Director Kim, blood streaming down his face and his expression twisted with manic excitement, let out a triumphant laugh and shouted for them to look. He declared that he had traveled far and wide just to show this moment, because he had decided to entrust his will to them. In that moment, Seo felt his mind go blank as a surge of rage welled up inside him. Yet, he forced himself to remain composed, steadying his emotions as he focused on watching Director Kim's martial arts performance. The spot where a grand 3-story building once stood had been completely obliterated, vanishing in an instant without leaving even a trace behind. Amid the burning wreckage, Seo reflected grimly that it was fortunate there had been no servants in the house at the time. Otherwise, hundreds of lives would have been lost in that single devastating attack. Seo examined the wreckage, noting the faint blade traces left among the few remnants. Realization struck him. The ball of enhanced chi from earlier had been a concentrated fusion of thousands of blade energies. Seo was awestruck by the sheer power he had just witnessed. It was stronger than any martial arts technique Director Kim had ever shown him before. An unbelievable force that left him in disbelief. Director Kim, bloodied but resolute, explained that this was how he had managed to shatter the arm of a core formation cultivator. In the past, he had been forced to rely on ambushes or assassinations just to take down cultivators in the chi building stage. But now, he declared, he could face them head-on. As the ground rushed up to meet them, Seo shouted in alarm that they were falling. Both he and Director Kim plummeted through the sky, their robes and hair whipping violently in the wind. The two crashed into the ground with tremendous force, sending debris and shockwaves exploding outward. The impact tore through the earth, scattering dirt, stone, and shattered branches into the air as the surrounding trees shook violently. Dust and debris slowly settled over the impact site. Splintered wood and scattered rocks lay strewn across the ground, while faint trails of smoke curled upward into the air, marking the aftermath of their violent fall. A crater marked the spot of their impact, dust still rising into the air as the red autumn leaves swayed gently in the breeze. From within the settling haze came a faint, earnest plea, asking not to forget these techniques. Bloodied and lying on the ground, Director Kim spoke with labored breaths. He said that these techniques were the culmination of his life's realizations, and pleaded for his martial arts to be passed down to future generations. Seo knelt beside the fallen and bloodied Director Kim, his voice firm, yet filled with concern. He told him that he had heard his words, and urged him to stop talking, reminding him that his life was at stake. Perched high in the branches of a towering tree, a figure looked down with a cold, confident gaze, and declared that they had found the ultimate martial spirit. They remarked with a hint of mockery that it was quite a terrible place to try and run to. Below, Seo stared upward, tension evident in his expression. The cultivator in blue looked down sharply and called out to Seo, addressing him as a civilian. His tone was cold and commanding as he declared that Director Kim was a criminal who had committed unspeakable crimes against the cultivators, ordering Seo to leave him there. Seo, his expression tense and wary, looked toward the cultivator and asked if he was there to punish Director Kim, or if perhaps he was an acquaintance of his. Without hesitation, Seo scooped up the wounded Director Kim and sprinted away at full speed. The ground blurred beneath his feet as he dashed forward, determined to escape before the cultivator could make a move. From his perch on the tree, the cultivator in blue clicked his tongue in irritation, calling the attempt pointless. Watching Seo carry Director Kim away, he wondered aloud if Seo had never heard about them from the ultimate martial spirit. The cultivator in blue let out a dark chuckle, deciding to treat the situation as entertainment. As ominous purple energy swirled around him, he taunted Seo, telling him to run as fast as he could. As Seo carried Director Kim away at full speed, looking back, Seo's eyes widened in shock. Gasping for breath, he began to utter in disbelief. Seo's eyes widened in horror as he spotted a horde emerging from the purple haze beneath the cultivator in blue. Their lifeless faces and glowing eyes left no doubt. These were corpses. His shock deepened as he recognized them for what they truly were. Jiang Shi. Seo sprinted forward with Director Kim in his arms, gritting his teeth in frustration and muttering that he was too old for this. Behind them, the Jiang Shi let out chilling screams and charged in relentless pursuit. As Seo ran with Director Kim in his arms, he panted heavily, but still managed to speak. He asked if the title Ultimate Martial Spirit was something the cultivators had given him, remarking that it was quite a unique name. Seo, still catching his breath as he was carried away, exclaimed that it was bizarre. The Ultimate Martial Spirit and the Infinite Fighting Spirit. Two legendary spirits, now running for their lives from the Jiang Shi. He couldn't help but point out just how strange the situation was. Seo, breathing heavily as he carried his companion on his back, urged desperately, "Never mind that. You need to stay awake. Please, say something." Behind them, the relentless Jiang Shi closed in, their eerie movements and expressions making the chase even more harrowing. One of the Jiang Shi lunged forward with a terrifying scream, its pale face twisted in rage and hunger, eyes glowing with an unnatural light as it reached out with clawed hands toward its prey. The Jiang Shi lunged at Seo with a feral roar, its claws slashing through the air. Seo, gritting his teeth, twisted his body mid-stride, narrowly avoiding the attack while keeping hold of Director Kim he was carrying, and slicked off the Zhongshi's head with his sword. Then SEO kicked that Zhongshi's side with brutal force. The impact reverberating through his body sends the Zhongshi flying, that Zhongshi flung backward into the others. The force of the impact sent multiple Zhangshi tumbling to the ground in a heap. SEO ran through the forest, his breath ragged as he carried another on his back. Damn it. You should be the one running with me on your back, he growled at Director Kim in frustration. I'm gonna die from suffocation. Why did you have to get your arms cut off? The Zhongshi refused to give up, their relentless pursuit echoing through the forest with shrill cries. Seo clenched his jaw, forcing himself to keep moving forward, his breathing heavy and ragged as he carried his companion on his back. Morning came, and night faded away. Countless times the sun had risen and fallen, yet he kept running, boots pounding against the dirt as the relentless Zhang Shi trailed close behind. Sweat dripped down Seo's face as his breath came in ragged gasps. Each inhale burned his lungs. But still, he pressed on. He skidded to a halt at the cliff's edge, staring down at the dizzying drop. It's so high up, he muttered, his voice tight with frustration, while the relentless pursuers clawed their way up behind him. From above, that cultivator floated effortlessly, his calm voice carrying a tone of mild surprise. Shocking, he remarked. Below him, the grotesque Zhangshi snarled and hissed, their pallid faces twisted with hunger. The man continued, his gaze fixed on the exhausted on SEO before him. You, a mere civilian, managed to withstand the Zhangshi for 3 days and nights. The man's voice grew colder as he continued. You cannot run anymore. His piercing gaze locked onto his target. It's also futile to do so. The cultivator's voice was laced with finality as he declared, the ultimate martial spirit is already dead. SEO, drenched in sweat and gasping for breath, clenched his teeth. His body trembled from exhaustion, yet he still held onto the hilt of his weapon, refusing to collapse. Seo's voice was weak yet steady as he stood at the cliff's edge, the weight of another person slung across his back, his breathing ragged. Then, with a faint wry smile, he added, I'm a physician after all.